right, everyone, welcome to the Kendrick Shope Show. And this is a bonus edition of the Kendrick Shope Show because I have a total boss with us, and I don't use that word lightly. Miss Selena Sue is here. Selena, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Kendrick.
It is my total pleasure. Now, anybody who is watching this right now on Facebook is like, I have seen a lot of Selena Sue recently. But for anybody who might just be, getting back from vacation or whatever, let me tell you a little bit about Selena. Selena is a publicity and marketing strategist for visionary entrepreneurs. I want to talk to you about that.
Yes.
And basically she works with coaches, authors, anybody who has a big vision and wants to share their message with millions. She's that M word that triggers so many of us that I love to use, millions.
Yeah.
The cool thing about Selena is her clients have been featured on in the Oprah magazine, Forbes, Inc., national television, podcast, and have gone on to create 7-figure businesses. But the best part is about her method, which is so symbiotic with authentic selling. And I'm gonna read it straight from her bio so I don't mess it up. Her signature approach comes down to building powerful and long-lasting relationships with influencers and the media in an authentic way. I mean, it's like strawberries and champagne. You go together with authentic selling perfectly.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. So one of the things I was so excited to have you here, I asked in all of the communities, the Sales School Graduate Lounge or Alumni Lounge, our authentic selling community, what questions people have about getting publicity. And I want to jump into that in just a second. But before we do, Selena, I want to talk to you about something that I noticed you have a great free training going on right now for impacting millions. And something that I noticed from video number 1 that I would love for you to touch on is you make it okay. You make it unselfish for people to have these big visions, for people to want to see themselves on national television or whatever. So can you talk to me a little bit about how that is unselfish?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to talk about those like limiting beliefs that people have. I mean, I've heard people say like, the thing is like, I'm scared of getting publicity. Like, even if someone said like, you could be on national TV tomorrow, I would say no, because, maybe it's like, I don't like the way I look on camera, or maybe, I'm afraid that I'm not going to live up to the hype, or I've just gotten started. Maybe 5 years from now, maybe when I have my book come out, but it's always a like later thing. And, I can relate to this because when I did my very first video interview, it was like a Skype split screen. So similar to this, I had a client who was like, Selena, you're awesome. I want all my clients to know about you. I want to do an interview and send it to them. I remember initially I was thinking, I don't want to do this. Like, I was like, I'm scared, but I knew deep down, like, this is a smart thing to do. So I did the interview. And then afterwards, I watched the interview and I was like covering my face with my hands, like I was watching a horror movie, because I was like, oh my God, I'm like talking too fast. I've got terrible eye contact. I'm not smiling. I don't look happy. And meanwhile, I had my interns like count my filler words because I was doing, Toastmasters and trying to improve. And there were like 137 filler words. I was like, oh my God, this is a disaster. I'm like, there's no way I can release this interview. And then one of my interns said like, honestly, I don't think it's as bad as you think. I think that a lot of people would be helped by this interview, and it kind of made me realize I was going into publicity for myself, like making it all about me. How do I look? How do I sound? Am I ready? Is my website ready to put myself out there? What if I make a fool of myself? And, it's okay to have those thoughts, but at the same time, like, that's not even why I'm doing it. I'm not doing publicity so people can see my face, just like for like a selfish reason. Like, truthfully, the reason why I really am doing it is because, me, you, all of us, we have an important story. We've got valuable ideas that could really help people. So nowadays when I do an interview, I'm like, I don't worry about tripping up on words or not being perfectly eloquent. If I came in with like my whole heart, ready to serve, offered interesting stories, valuable advice, someone could learn something and be helped by it, then I did my job. So that's like one of the key things that I do to take the pressure off myself is remember, it's not about me. It's all the people that I'm looking to help.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I could not agree more. I tell people all the time, you know, when you're writing copy, when you are, no matter what you're doing, it's not about you. It's about them and what you can do for them. And Selena, I thoroughly believe that accepting this call, and I do believe it's a call to have our own personality-based businesses is an acceptance or saying yes to a life of service. You know, I think this is just as much a public service because of the impact we can have, because of how we can change people's lives as anything else. And so when you think about it through that filter, it changes so much of that limiting belief, as you said, of being selfish or doing it for selfish reasons. I can tell you.
Well, I want to add to that because that is like one of my biggest passions is helping people who have this personal brand and this powerful message. Because when I was in my late 20s, I had this quarter life crisis and I was just so unhappy. You know, I was clinically depressed and I was just like, I need to feel better because it's just so painful to feel this way.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, all of us have been through that. Many of us have at some point. And so I found this women's life coaching group. And it was then that I learned about all these authors and thought leaders, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, You Can Heal Your Life, you know, messages about love and taking power of your own life and everything. And then discovering this online world of different experts and authors. And, you know, for me, I was like, wow, because I realized that when I was feeling so down and lost, I didn't just need more information and random articles written by faceless people. You know, it wasn't information, I needed inspiration, right? And that magic combination is just so powerful. And so meeting these people, you know, who embody this message of possibility that were role models made me think like, wow, you know, I can find my life purpose. I can start a business. I can leave this toxic relationship. And so, you know, I mean, some of the ideas that we're putting out there, other people may have said it before, but it's not going to resonate until it comes from you. You know, there are certain people that are your people and they need to hear it from you. And, you know, people who can relate to aspects of your story, your personality, the way that you deliver things. And I really feel like it's a spiritual mission and a spiritual path because like a lot of my people, you know, and I imagine like we attract similar, you know, kind of authentic, heart-centered entrepreneurs. It's like, you know, some of them are like, I don't like putting myself out there, but it feels like a spiritual responsibility. I can't just keep this to myself, keep this to 5 people, you know, because literally there are millions of people that could benefit from this information.
Thank you for saying that. And I agree totally. One of the things that, and it's no secret, I am no introvert. I am an extrovert. You talk about being an introvert. I am an extrovert. I crave interaction like people crave air. However, I do believe that it is our obligation. If you have a skill that can change somebody's life, health, business, weight, whatever, the amount of grief that they're experiencing, the amount of joy that they're experiencing, if you can change that, it is your obligation to share those gifts with the world. And I think when people, going back to where we started this conversation, when people say it needs to be perfect, and I get there. I mean, I get that. Been there, done that, lived that for a long time. But when you say that, what you're essentially saying, if you flip that around and look at it differently, is it's okay for my people to suffer just a little bit longer until I reach perfection.
Right.
That I might be, and when you think about it, like, you're like, no, of course it's not okay for somebody to sit in their misery and their limiting beliefs while I'm striving for perfection. That's essentially what we do when we're facing that. It's got to be perfect before.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants their
like it when people are real. I mean, you know, and it's also like as you become more successful, the more vulnerable you want to be, the more stories you want to share. If you seem so perfect, people are like, okay, well, that's great for you, but I can't relate to that, to myself in that. And that's also a disservice, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you want to put your best foot forward, but, you know, you also want to show the real you know, where you are right now.
Yeah, I agree. And that is one thing I don't think I'm ever going to be accused of is having the perfect anything. Like there's always somewhere where a ball has gotten dropped but it's real, it's authentic. And so it just is, we kind of make light of it. All right, Selena, let's jump into questions. One of the first questions I got was, what must be included in any pitch to the media? And I don't know if this means podcast, so interpret that however. What one thing must be included?
Yeah, I can break down the whole pitch. Obviously, it varies a little bit depending on whether it's TV or guest post. But okay, so when you're thinking about your pitch, the first thing you want to think about is your subject line. Just like when you're sending an email to your list, if the subject line doesn't look intriguing, they'll ignore it. If it looks like it's a spam email, they're going to ignore it. So what I like to do is in the subject line actually include the word pitch. So they know it's not like a mass press release. This is like a pitch. And then I'll include like one of my key story ideas in the headline. If it's a podcast interview and you thought of like the name for the podcast interview, have that in the headline. So the person's like, ooh, that looks good. Like I would open that email if I was on the receiving end of that. If I'm having this person on my podcast and I saw, ooh, that's like the episode or that's the article. So that's step one. And then in the email, you want to begin with some kind of warm, personal connection, because the secret to getting people interested in you is to show that you're interested in them. I mean, that's like, that's kind of like sales 101. And so before you just start talking about yourself, think about like, what could I say that is genuine? So don't just say, I love your podcast and move on, because it's like, okay, you could say that to 100 million people. But, even if it's like, I just discovered your podcast 2 weeks ago and I listened to the interview you did with so-and-so, and I thought it was so amazing. I love this point, or I love how you ask all your guests this question, but something that is sincere and shows that you're genuinely interested. And then you want to transition into briefly introducing yourself, not your about page, not 3 paragraphs, but more like 2 sentences. But in your intro, you also want to share your credibility markers, what makes you an expert. So like if you're a business coach, maybe you share how many clients you have worked with, or maybe, clients who I've worked with have gotten results like X and Y, or, maybe media that you've gotten before, you've had media, but something that adds some color beyond just, I do this. And then, the heart of your pitch is really your story ideas. And so one thing I really want to just emphasize is story ideas are different from topics. So a lot of people will pitch and say, hey, I'm a health coach for busy women entrepreneurs. I would love to be on your podcast, helping busy entrepreneurs figure out how to, be more healthy. But the thing is like those are general topics. It's not a specific story idea. So a story idea would be like the number one tool that my clients use to lose 10 pounds in, 2 months or whatever it is, but something very specific. So have a couple of story ideas. Ideally, you have a couple just so that you're giving people variety and choice. And then what I like to do is, if possible, show people that you are familiar with that medium. So if you are, offering to write a guest post, then is there a link to a blog post on your site of like a well-written article that you could share, or another guest post? But, showing people that you can write is powerful. If you're going to say, let me write for your website, or if you're pitching yourself for TV, it is a really good idea to have a video of you, even if it's Skype split screen and someone is asking you questions. It doesn't have to be perfect, but having something. One of my friends who's a TV producer said that if you're pitching yourself for TV and you don't show any video, it's kind of like trying to sell a house and not showing any photos. Like what's the point? Yeah. For TV, it's not just being an expert or knowing how to write, because it's a different medium. It's about how do you show up on camera. So then you're giving people everything they need on a silver platter. And I also like kind of keeping the door open. So saying like, I'm happy to brainstorm other topics, which is just other ideas. I love, sharing my expertise around X, Y, and Z. So having a couple of different topics so they can see like, oh, maybe that article we can't do, or we already did something like that, but she can talk about all these other things. So there's like a whole, wealth of possibilities.
Thank you. Thank you for breaking it down. I am a step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of gal. So I like that. And here's a great key takeaway, which is why I have fallen in love with your work. Oh. It's so much like selling. I mean, and so people say in sales school, sometimes they'll say, will you review this pitch for podcast? And I'll say, this is not my area of expertise, but I'll look at it. Right. I've been on a few podcasts. I'll give you, but I'm not a publicity expert. But when you look at it through the lens of selling, you can identify some key things that people make mistakes on. Like, for example, 4 paragraphs about themselves. I'm like, right. It's not about you. It's about what you can do for them or their audience. Yes, we have to have some credibility. So I love that you just mapped that out. First of all, I love that I was right. Second of all,
Yeah.
I love that you have that out there so easily. So let's go to the flip side. That's what must be included in a pitch. Is there anything, this is question number 2, that we need to make sure we omit from a pitch?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of things that you want to omit, this is kind of like a tricky thing, but like, let's say you're looking to be in Oprah magazine, if you're pitching your idea and you're like, I've just been featured in, and then essentially like listing all their competitors, then they may be like, oh, we're not the first person who got to it. Or like, I've already shared this story with someone else. I think it's great to show that you have media around your story, but ideally you want to share different publications. So, if it's, it's okay, to sometimes, like if you're pitching yourself for Forbes, I've written for Inc., like, there are times when it's okay, but if it's like a breaking story or something that is like, this is my like powerful life story that I haven't shared with anyone, that could be a great feature, and you're like, I just, shared it the other day with your competitor, it's going to be less compelling. So just keep that in mind. I mean, on the one hand, you do want to share, that you've gotten media before, but you also want to make these publications feel special. And so, maybe it's approaching it with a different angle or something like that.
Where were you 3 or 4 months ago? Like, seriously, why did I not have you 3 or 4 months ago? So, interesting story. We pitched Ellen, somebody from Ellen actually reached out to us and said, would you like to, I don't remember, I wasn't involved in that, but basically pitch a show for the Ellen show. We pitched the same story idea that we did on Steve Harvey. And that was basically what we said. Like, we got our one shot. I should have asked for help. I'm terrible at knowing when to ask for help. And she was like, this has already been done. And I was like, oh, shoot. But it never dawned on me until this instant.
Right.
I was like, oh, crap. So my 15 seconds of fame is up forever because my one storyline is up.
Well, there's always another chance, but yeah, right. Because like, if she feels like that's their competitor, it's like, oh, we already did it, Even though it's kind of like, okay, well, her audience hasn't seen it, but the way they still want to feel special, like they've got something unique.
Yes. That makes perfect sense. I was like, I don't know what to do with that. So thanks for clearing that up. That makes perfect sense.
Oh my gosh, I'm holding a vision of you being on Ellen. That would be amazing.
Thank you. One day it'll happen. Okay, so this is a great question, and I know the person who actually sent this question in. She is a health school graduate who takes everything to the letter, and so she wants to know what needs to be done before you pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things I recommend is that people have an expert website. And even if you're like, okay, I don't have like $5,000 to shell out for a website, like there's lots of different ways you can get a website up quickly and simply. But the thing is, if you're positioning yourself as the ultimate expert and they're like, okay, let me Google this person, and there's no information about you online, it's kind of like a question mark. Like, wait, who is this person? The other thing is like, you can also really, guide people in the right direction. So maybe you've got 2 different brands, or you're known for multiple things. When you're pitching that person, include a link to what's most relevant, include a link to maybe the media bio that relates to, this thing that you want to be known for, your products or things like that. But people are going to want to know that you're the real deal. Like actually someone, and this is a little separate from media, but interconnected, but someone who's a success coach, she told me that one of her clients, wasn't able to find anything about her on LinkedIn. And that just kind of made her curious, like who she is. Because there's sometimes people make up their names, actually, they create a new identity as a coach or whatever it is. So just having some kind of digital footprint is important because people will absolutely Google you.
Yeah, that's it. That's something I've never thought of. That's why you're here. That's something I've never thought of though. And it makes so much sense. It's funny, Google yourself and see what comes up,
Oh, that's a good one. And the thing is, it's not that you can't get media without it, because sometimes someone just, needs a quote. And if you, fit the bill, I mean, there's a lot of everyday people who aren't entrepreneurs that don't have websites, but if you're really positioning yourself as a go-to expert, then you really want to think about having that website.
So one of the things I want to pause and shift gears from for just a minute and talk about that you touched on, I believe in the publicity pyramid, and I believe that that's where I learned that from. I know I learned it from you. I believe this is where I learned it. And for those of you who don't know, you can check out the publicity pyramid, and it's free. Selena's given it free in her Impacting Millions free training, which I'll put a link to here in a minute. You should do it just for the free downloads, by the way. Like the content's great which is the sign of a great bonus, but the content's fantastic in the videos, and I don't watch much of this stuff, y'all. I'm telling you, I'm doing this with you. I don't watch much of this. It's the best of the best. And the downloads, people in my community have been like, the downloads just keep getting better and better and better. So side note. But in the publicity, well done. But in the publicity pyramid, you talk about, let's say you want to sit on Ellen's couch or Oprah's couch or whatever. That is not necessarily where you start. Yeah. And this resonated with me so much, Selena, because I can remember, and I shared this story with my community recently. I don't know, let's see, 5 years ago, I had this desire to impact more people. And maybe to sit on Oprah's couch, and thought I have no idea how to get on Oprah's couch. Does Oprah even have a couch you can sit on anymore? I reached out to my local hometown paper in Sweetwater, Tennessee. And the article, you can't see it, but the article's framed right up over here. And I pitched an idea. Now, they knew me, they knew my family. But I have to tell you, when that was published in our local hometown paper, 3 things happened. Number one, I got more media requests because of it. A regional paper saw it and said, hey, we want to do a story. A regional magazine saw it and said, hey, we want to do a story. Number 2, my confidence skyrocketed. It just did. I just thought, oh my gosh, there are people here who really do resonate outside of this little bubble, because I was brand spanking new, outside of this little bubble we're in. And number 3, I got a client from it, from this little bitty thing. And so since then, I have had a love affair with publicity and media, because in my opinion, it's the fastest way to get your message out to your people. So,
I love it.
I'm curious, when you look at the publicity pyramid, and again, if you don't know what that is, download Selena's free training, because it's fantastic. What if people are sitting there second guessing themselves, saying they're ready to take that first step and they've got some mind crack to get over? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just like really understanding why publicity is so valuable. I mean, there's so many reasons, right? But like, so for example, if you were to tell like your friends, like, oh, or your family, like, oh, I just did a webinar, I had 500 people register. They're going to be like, what's a webinar? They don't really but if they see like, oh my gosh, she was in the local newspaper, oh my gosh, she was on Forbes and Huffington Post, and she's doing an interview, they're like, oh my God, you're going places, this is exciting. One of our mutual friends, Laura Belgray, she wrote a piece for Forbes and posted it on Facebook, and she got like 300 likes, which is a lot more than her average post, maybe even 10 times more. And her mom shared it, her dad shared it, her sister, her brother-in-law, and they're like, oh my God, like I'm so proud of Laura. So it like gets people really excited. Like everyone understands it, from the people in your existing audience that love you, who want to share that, as well as family and friends. So it's kind of like the ultimate fastest credibility marker. No matter what industry you're in, if you're trying to explain that someone is an expert, like even if you were like, oh, this person's been endorsed by this expert in their industry, which people in your industry won't know who that is, but other people don't know, right? Or maybe she has this credential or this degree. People might be like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. But if you're like, oh, they've been featured in this place and that place, and they're on TV, it's like, oh my God, like clearly an expert. And the other thing with, because people think like, oh, maybe I need to wait until I've got a book coming out or whatever. The skill of publicity is learning how to get people so excited about your work that they want to share your work, your stories, your ideas, your product with their audience, whether it is 1,000 people, 10,000, 100,000, or 1 million. So as entrepreneurs, it's like one of these essential skills to getting to the next level is getting people so excited about you. They want to open up their platform for you. And that's how you create leverage. We can talk to people all day one-on-one, trying to get their attention, saying we're the best at what we do. But there's also that other level of credibility when someone else is saying it, when an influencer is saying it, when a media outlet is saying it, and you're reaching more people at once. want. So, I mean, that's just, you know, why it is so important and why it's really, you know, essential to do it if you want to stand out.
So when you talk about getting other people excited to share your work, right, with their audience, how do you do that? What's the first step? I'm sold. Okay, great. Let's get other people excited. What's the first step in that?
Yeah, I mean, so the very first step is like adding value to them. So it's not about you, it's about their audience. So one example is I had a client and they had this incredible journal. It's called the Self Journal. And, you know, I was saying to them, we can't just email people about the journal because that's like, it's like, you know, we can't just be like, buy. Mm-hmm. We've got to be like, what does a journal help you with? What are the goals that people have achieved? What are the success stories? And what are your broader expert topics? So, you know, some of the expert topics we came up with were things like morning and evening routines, productivity, motivation, goal setting, their e-commerce business, online business, you know, things like that. And then it's like, there's so many different things to talk about. And depending on the person and the media outlet, they may be like, oh my God, I love that topic. Or, you know, or this story idea would really serve my audience. So, you know, it's about service. It's also about sharing ideas that are interesting and counterintuitive. So I know someone that yoga instructor that wanted to get on TV and share this idea called 7 yoga moves that can save your marriage. And that was different, right?
Wow.
It wasn't
Yeah.
just like, or not even like to lose weight or to inner peace, but like save your marriage. And so it's about like opening up your heart chakra, you know, so whenever you've got something that's, you can make it a little bit like counterintuitive and interesting, the media is going to love it. You know, when you're first presenting the idea, it doesn't have to be like 100% accurate, like in the headline, you can get into it, but really creating something exciting and also very valuable is what's going to make people be like, oh my God, my people need this. This would help them improve their lives.
Okay, so I'm curious, how much of, and I know this is not what you teach, but it's a relevant topic. How much of, how effective is a scandalous headline or a scandalous tweet? We saw, in my opinion, and you're the expert here, but we saw a president get elected because he constantly kept himself in the news by degrading people. And so whether you're Democrat or Republican, I don't care. But the point is, he was everywhere because people were so shocked at what he was saying. It worked.
Yeah.
And so is that something we need? I mean, it feels inauthentic, but I want you to address it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You know, it really depends on the kind of media that you're pursuing. So TV, for example, they tend to like sensational headlines, things about like danger, make sure your kids know about this and all of that. Because when people are flipping through channels, like you got to get their attention right away. So I see that more with TV. For, let's say, women's magazines and websites, I mean, a lot of them are looking to empower people. So something is overly salacious or sensational, you know, it could be a turnoff. But then again, it depends on the media outlet. Some people like have that voice, you know. So yeah, it depends.
Is there a way to be sensational without feeling, and this is probably all individual, but without it being icky, sleazy, slimy, gross?
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, thinking about the highs and lows of your personal story. I mean, everyone likes a rags to riches story. And, you know, as online entrepreneurs, we have the potential to make a lot of money. And we also have the potential to lose a lot of money. There's a lot of up and downs. So that's really interesting to people. Like, if it's like from bankrupt to 6 figures or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
I read those stories. I read them. They get my attention. I mean, they do.
And it's real, and people have gone through that, or they're like, okay, maybe my thing is not as bad as that, you know, yay, I can learn something from that. So, you know, definitely, you know, you want to brag, you want to showcase your highs and lows, like the most exciting elements of your story that will draw people in.
Okay, great. So we've got a couple of more questions here. One is, I thought this was a great question. How to display past podcast appearances and media on our website. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. So how to display them. So there's a few key places you want to put your media logos. One place is your homepage. When people arrive at your website right away, showcasing your credibility markers. Also, it's really smart to put it in places where there's a call to action. So maybe it's a sales page and you've got your media logos on the sales page, or it's a webinar registration page and you want them to opt into that, putting your media logos there, or, wherever someone is making a buying decision, maybe, and you've got a photo of you being in a magazine, or a quote that someone said, or like a famous podcaster was like, so-and-so is the real deal when it comes to that. You could put that with your sales materials. So, and then also you can consider putting it on your about page too, or definitely like listing it out in your bio. But the cool thing with these, media hits is you can use them for the life of your business, and I think it's ideal to have at least 2 to 3 strong media hits. And when I say strong, I would say these are, media publications, outlets that your audience is familiar with. And that really speak to your target market. So, if you have could say, I've been featured in Forbes and Inc. It's like, wow, that's really powerful. You can use that for the life of your business when you're being introduced on other podcasts, when you are going on stage, when you're pitching yourself for speaking events. These are powerful credibility markers.
They are. And thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I talk about all the time is the number one reason that people don't buy from us. Doesn't matter if we're talking about you, me, Best Buy, Apple, Android products. I don't know why I'm cell phone, but they don't buy is there is a lack of trust.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about that. It just exists. But if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was going to work, you're in the market for a cell phone, you knew this was the cell phone that was going to do everything for you, you knew this product was going to change your life, your health, whatever, you would buy it. And so you have to be in that mindset when you're asking for the business and seeing those logos. Well, Forbes trusts her enough to send their it's a sales psychology thing, right? It's subliminal.
Yeah.
Enough to trust our message enough to send it with share it with the readers, such and such, such and such. It's almost like saying, okay, I can trust you. You're not, if Forbes trusts you, if Inc. trusts you, you're not going to screw me over.
Yeah. I mean, if your ideas aren't good, you're not going to get on those publications. So it really says a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I think and it's, again, there's so much that's symbiotic here between what you're saying and what we teach with sales. I think that you're also one of the steps that comes before selling. I think people mess this up, but I think that if your people don't know you, they're not going to buy from you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to get your credibility markers ready. You've got to be putting yourself out there as an expert and being seen. That helps with sales so much.
Yeah. And so we have a podcast that I was on 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And people still say, hey, I found you through Being Boss podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But one interview I bet you I've gotten 200 customers from that.
Oh my gosh.
Interview.
That is good to know.
Yeah. I think I was episode number 8, maybe. Emily was my client when they launched that.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Selena, I have a confession to make, and everybody listening, I told her not to do it. So she said, I'm going to start a podcast with Kathleen. And I said, do not do it. This has just exploded. You're time crunched. It's a partnership. I don't love the partnership thing. I mean, clearly I gave her bad advice because Being Boss now, they've got a book coming out April 18th, which is fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a huge podcast. Yeah. That's on a lot of people's wish list for sure.
Yeah. And they're so much fun. So much fun. We joked about that at Christmas this year. I was like, remember I told you not to do that? On second thought, best decision you ever made. So, okay, how to leverage past media? So you touched a little bit on this about you don't want to leverage them so much to where it's like, well, somebody's already been there, done that with that idea. There's nothing new here.
Right.
It almost feels a little bit like a tightrope because you want to leverage that other people have featured your work. So what's the best way to do that when pitching places?
Yeah. So when you're pitching places, I mean, you want to mention that, like you could say, I've been on TV before, I've done podcast interviews. Here's an example. I mean, with podcasts, I don't really think it's so much of an issue, because oftentimes people are asked similar interview questions, like what's your story and things like that. That's more with like magazines. If you've got like a feature story that you're pitching, then you want to be a bit more careful. But in terms of like leveraging media in general, like that's the biggest thing because a lot of people are like, oh, I was on this blog, I was on this podcast, and they're just sitting and waiting, you know?
Yeah.
And showing up is one thing, but the other thing is making sure that other people know about it. So like a couple of things I recommend people do is for their biggest media hits, like I encourage them to share it with their audience. And don't just say like, check it out. You know, you have to sell. You know, why should people stop what they're doing to read your article, to listen to your podcast interview? So share the story behind it. How did you get this amazing opportunity? You know, why are you so excited? What were some of the gems that you shared in your interview? And then invite people to comment, to share it. You know, when I did my first guest post for one of my mentors, Ramit Sethi, you know, I emailed my list and said, like, this is a dream come true. You know, years ago, I would be sitting, you know, behind my laptop, like watching all his videos, reading all his emails, wishing that one day I could join this world of, you know, online entrepreneurs. And it feels surreal that, you know, 2 years into my business, I actually have the chance to write a guest post, and I'm writing something that I feel really deeply about, which is, you know, how to turn people you admire into your friends and mentors and clients. I invite you to check it out, you know, and it would mean the world to me if you could leave a comment. You know, my goal is to get X number of comments. And so, you know, people would write back and be like, this is amazing, Selena, and, you know, on and on. I'd be like, and then if they didn't leave a comment on the guest post, I'd be like, hey, would you mind leaving that on the guest post? And people did that. And that's how I got my, you know, 200 plus comments. And then when I was pitching myself for other guest post places, I was like, oh, I've been featured in this place. And I included a link to the article. And in parentheses, I put 267 comments. So I didn't even make them do the work. I just put like the facts right in front of them. And so that helped me get other media. They're like, oh, wow, like, you know, her articles or interviews are taking off because people are commenting, people are engaging. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, you know, you want to understand like what kind of media is going to move the needle for your business. And I can, you know, share some, you know, big ideas around this really quickly. So you want to think like, are you reaching a niche audience or a mainstream audience? Are you selling high end or are you selling more mass market? If you're selling a $20 book, that's very different than selling a $5,000 coaching package, you know, different clientele. So if you are on a podcast and you're spending 30 minutes or an hour sharing your story, your methodology, your successes, your advice, your tips, you know, people listening to that are going to feel like they know you. That builds a know, like, and trust factor a lot more quickly. You know, if you're on TV for 3 minutes or you've got one line quote in a magazine, I mean, that can be powerful, don't get me wrong, but that's not the same kind of person that has the same emotional investment, right? And people that listen to podcasts, they carve out the time, you know, an hour or so. These are people that are learners. They're more likely to buy your online course, you know, get your support as a coach or a consultant or for any of your done for you services. So for me, like when I've launched group programs, like I love going on the podcast circuit and speaking to people where there's synergies, where their audience can benefit from, you know, my advice. And a lot of these podcasters, their audience are people who buy and invest in themselves. So, you know, like when I have a launch, I'll share the podcast interviews with my list. I remember one time I said to people, you know, I know it's a big decision to decide whether to join this 6-month program with me. And, you know, we did the webinar. You may or may not have been able to join the webinar. I want you to feel like you know me. So here are 2 interviews where you can really get to know me. And people said to me, like, thank you so much for that interview because, you know, between the interview and the webinar, I felt like I really knew who you were and I feel really excited to join you for this program. So I think that, you know, you really want to leverage the interviews. It's not just having the logo. I mean, yes, that's certainly one thing, but it's also the content. You know, this is a form of content marketing and there's that extra level of credibility when you're doing it with someone else. And sometimes your best stuff comes out when someone else is interviewing you versus you're just reading from a script or whatever it is. So really think about how you can include it in your existing marketing.
Selena, I think that's brilliant. I think you are brilliant.
Oh.
I've never ever thought about that before. And I've made some notes, but I think that that's one area where I absolutely fall short. And I've never thought about it like that. You have a light bulb moment I've had several, but that's a huge moment for me. So thank you for that. I think that is just absolutely brilliant. I think the thing that you did with Ramit's blog about the comments and asking people to go comment, and then as you talked about, as you pitched yourself, I was like, of course that makes total sense. I mean, it's like as easy as A, B, and C right there in front of my face. And I've never thought about it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So Selena, let's talk then really quickly. And I want to be respectful of your time as well, because I know you've got lots going on, but let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about impacting millions.
Yeah.
So I know that you have free training going on right now, which as I have told everyone, I have done it myself. I am doing it myself. It is freaking tastic. It is amazing. And it's free. Like I don't understand why you would not, because if they don't know you, they won't buy from you and you won't get the opportunity to help people. So,
Yeah.
but I will not get on my soapbox yet. Anyway, in a minute, probably. And I feel so passionately about it, Selena, that anybody who in our community who signs up for the free training, we're doing a free coaching experience with them.
Woohoo!
I do believe that once you get there, I can teach you the calls to actions and the things you need to do to sell those people, to turn them into customers. But I will never, ever be the person who teaches you how to have those people find you. That's just not what I do. So anyway, I'm extremely passionate about your work. But tell me a little bit about Impacting Millions. This leads into a program that you have run for several years called Impacting Millions. Yes?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I created the program because, there are so many people that are so good at what they do. And it's like, they know it, their clients know it, their friends know it, but they're like, okay, no one else knows it. They're not getting the opportunities or being overlooked. They're getting on the phone with someone and, the person is like, basically like, kind of like shopping around and they're like, I don't want to do this whole song and dance. I want people to, when they think of me, they get excited. They see me as the go-to expert. And so that's what happens when you have publicity, when you've got media and influencers spreading the word about your work. So, Impacting Millions, there's kind of 6 parts to the system. There's 6 live modules. What's different is like, I teach this program live. So I show up live, I answer questions live, I go through the program, support you with it. But the first thing is really developing your media strategy, because, it's going to be different for different people. If you're selling, high-end coaching or courses, that's different than someone who's looking to come out with a book. And depending on your niche, and also what you enjoy doing, maybe you like writing more than speaking, whatever it is, there's going to be a different kind of publicity mix for you, a different kind of media list that you're going to want to pursue. And then we, also talk about like, how can you make yourself attracted to the media? When they learn about your story, when they come to your website, what do they need to see where they're like, oh my gosh, this person is amazing. I want to, dig in deeper. This could be a great person for our show, for our website, for our magazine, and so forth. And then we dive deep into the 4 main types of media. So there's guest posting, podcasts, magazines, and TV. Like, for example, podcasts are different than some of these other media where there could be a revolving door of producers and editors. With a podcast, the person who's interviewing you, like, owns the podcast. They're putting their money into producing it, the show notes, the everything. They've built their audience. So when you're developing a relationship with that person and even thinking about how you want to go about it, it's different. It's not the same. Doing a 3-minute interview on TV is not the same as doing an hour-long interview, on a podcast. These are things that you need to be ready for and prepared for. So it's like, how do you get those opportunities? How do you prepare for them? And how do you really deliver in a way that showcases you in the best light and brings people back to your website, that plants the seed and gets people excited about buying your products and services so that you're like the person for them? So that's kind of what we teach in the program. And what's really cool is throughout the year, after we go through the live training, I bring in people from my personal media network. So people who have worked at the Today Show, people who have written for Oprah Magazine, who work at Entrepreneur Magazine. And we have different sessions where you can join in and you can brainstorm story ideas with them. You don't even need like too much formulated, but just like something like who you are, or maybe it's this, and then have a conversation with them, or they can review your pitches during these live sessions. And there are lots of opportunities. I mean, this is year round that we offer this. And then we've also got like a really great community. So the people that I attract through Impacting Millions, naturally from the title, are people who want to make a difference. They really care about helping people, and they're people who think big, So, I mean, a lot of people have made incredible friends. They found strategic partners. There are people who've been like, oh, I have this article opportunity. I'd love to include you in my guest post, so there's a lot of win-wins that happen in the group. So incredible content, incredible community, including people from my media network that I bring in to mentor people.
I think that is, it sounds like a dream come true. It really does. It's amazing. And I think there are a couple of things that when you talk about over delivering, that this program really blew my mind. And I consider myself the queen of over delivering. So to blow my mind is really difficult, but there are two things that blew my mind. Number one is the year-long support.
Yeah.
I think that is, it's something that I want to model in sales school because we launch it once a year. And I always say, how can we give back to our alumni? And it's always been sort of scattered and not super well planned out. And I've always had the excuse, an excuse there. And when I saw that you did that, I thought, my gosh, she is setting the bar. And I love it. She is the bar, not she raised the bar. It's like that Ford commercial. I didn't set the bar. I am the bar. It's fantastic. And the other thing is, I think that in sales, a lot of times we talk about win-win. And so I love that when I read about the program and the community and the collaboration, and it really does seem to, from the top down, Selena, embody what we talked about initially, which is building powerful connections and long-lasting relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's such a big part of it. And, I think that sometimes a community is really what pushes us forward, like because I show up live, so I'm there with people so that there's like that extra level of like, okay, this is real. I have all the support. Yeah. But, sometimes, it's easy to get distracted and do other things and it's also scary sometimes to put yourself out there. But when you've got a community of people who are doing it, like I've had people who, one woman, she had immigrated to the US, like English is not her first language. She became a school teacher and she's retired now. She's a senior citizen and she joined Impacting Millions and wanted to reinvent herself as a parenting expert, and she didn't even have a website, but she, during the course, she got a basic website out. She wrote a piece for the Huffington Post. She was on a top podcast in her industry. And it was like, oh my God, it really like shifted like her identity, her confidence, how she felt. So, it's like there are so many people who are doing it, people who have just started their business to people who have had their business for years and years. And they're like, I want to take it to the next level. But it really is a level playing field because everyone is like looking to get publicity, take things to the next level and move beyond kind of their circle of people who know them to reaching more people.
And Selena, that was actually one of my last questions, which is, so if anybody's sitting out there and they're saying, okay, I am thoroughly bought into, if they don't know me, they can't buy from me, which means I can't help them. I want more publicity, regardless of how much I've had. Is there a way? What things should they be considering? I guess to say, are there 2 or 3 things? Yes, you are a fit for this program. If.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you do want to be clear, like what you want to be known for. So if you are kind of reinventing yourself and you're like, I don't know if I want to do health coaching or love coaching or really, like that kind of thing. Like if there's a lack of clarity, that's not ideal because you want to be clear with your message. Of course people can figure that over the course of the year, but like the ideal person is somebody who kind of knows what they want. The other thing that is like ideal is if you have ideas of how you would monetize things on the back end, so if people came into you, do you have like, even if it's a wait list for like, your services or a coaching program, or are you still like, I don't really know what I want to offer people, it's great if you can figure that out before the program begins or shortly like after the program begins. But the program is really good for people who, have got a powerful story or who have important knowledge and information. You're like, so many other people could benefit from it. And, I want to create this work that I'm proud of, to write these guest posts, to do these interviews that really showcase my best ideas and draw more people in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm going to say, you'll hear me say this all year long, community, but again, if they don't know you, you can't help them. If it's your obligation to help them and they don't know you exist, They are sitting in pain, suffering, and we don't want that. You don't want that. So I love the amount of people, the millions. People, there's such a charge, I feel like, with the word millions, whether it's millions of dollars, whether it's millions of people get a charge around it. And I jokingly refer to it as millions, because why wouldn't you want to make millions and help millions? I mean, that's like the ultimate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like I used to think like for myself, like, oh, I'm more of a behind the scenes person. I just want to support other people. And it was interesting because I was supporting with publicity, but I was like, oh, I don't know if I want that for myself. But, you know, I knew deep down, okay, it's a smart idea to have an email list. It's a smart idea to share my message. And now I'm like, okay, I want to write a book one day. Like now I know that's for me, but I didn't know that years ago, but I'm so glad that I built up the audience, you know, and have the relationships and the credibility markers so I can achieve, you know, all of my dreams. So there are some people that maybe it's like, you don't want, you know, to serve 1 million people. That's okay. Maybe you want to serve 20 people or 50 people or 100, you know, but you still need those credibility markers. You still need to be putting your ideas and your story out there, you know, so it can work for you even if you've got, you know, a smaller vision or you've got like a world changing vision.
That's a great distinction. Thank you for making that distinction. That's super important. Yeah, very much so. So we will populate this with the link where people can register for the free training. If you have not done that, as sure as my hair is red, trust the redhead, carve out an hour and do it and download the downloads. You can thank me for it later, and you will. And then, Selena, you've got a webinar coming up this week too, right?
Yeah, it's next week, next Monday and Tuesday. Oh, another thing is when they opt in to check out the video series and they watch all 3 videos, they can fill out a form for a chance to win a trip to New York City. So that's pretty cool. People should do that.
Yes. So that was one of the things I'm so mad at myself I didn't bring up. So as I'm reading all of the information and I saw this, New York City is my favorite place on the earth. I love it. I love it. I love it. I feel like when I read about this, I literally in my head started singing The Room Where It Happens from Hamilton. Like, I want to be in that room with all of those influencers, with Selena. I want to be the one who wins. So I think that, yeah, I mean, seriously, watch all the videos, answer all the questions. You could win a trip to New York City to sit in the room with these people that Selena is talking about. I mean, so generous of you, super, super generous. And I will tell you all this, her gatherings with experts are legendary. They're legendary. She does a fantastic job with those. So yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. It's all free.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me yesterday, we got an email that said, why are you promoting, it's true story, impacting millions so hard? I have never seen you promote anybody's stuff as hard as you are hers. And I haven't. I can't think of one person's stuff I've ever promoted. And I said, you know, thank you for reaching out to me. And I understand it's a shift from what you've seen from me for 5 years. There are 2 reasons. Number one, I believe in the work. It's not a skill set I can solve, nor do you want me solving, but you need it. And number 2, because it's all free. Like all I'm promoting right now is 100% free. Why would you not take advantage of it?
Yeah.
So, you know.
No, honestly, like I give so much away in the free content that if people just take that, like it's going to help them a lot. It's like a mini course.
Well, yeah, you get 100 places to pitch, the publicity pyramid, a 7-step action plan. I mean, it's a mini course, like you said, in itself. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And
it's not going to be up forever. So if people want it, they should check it out now.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. Selena, thank you so much for being here and for adding so much value to our community. I have got a ton of notes here for myself personally that I will also post for the authentic selling community. We wish you the best of luck with all that you have going on. And we are looking forward to supporting Impacting Millions in a huge way over the next
Yay. Thank you so much, Kendrick. So great to talk to your tribe. And yeah, I feel like this is so synergistic and aligned. I mean, if people know how to do sales and they know how to get media attention and publicity and buzz, this is like the power combination.
It is. Like I said, it's one of the reasons that I am so excited about it. Thank you for being here. Best of luck. I believe in you and I believe in your business. You can do this. Your action step today is opt in for the free training and do it. It is free and it will get more eyeballs on your business. It doesn't get any better than that. Have a wonderful day, everybody.